back again. I don't know what happened. We had done these regular TED talks, I call them, because of the because of you hear him slurping there. My friend Ted Schatzki. We 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 rekindled our friendship during the pandemic, the first year, and then the second year. We didn't figure on a second year. We thought, oh, certainly we'd see each other. And then we didn't really talk. I mean, you were busy. I was busy. So here's my friend, Ted Schatzki. Welcome to Emil Amok's Takeout. Ted, don't hit your microphone. That's a bad microphone when you touch it or when you so okay, all right. I'm just saying that you're good. You're good. So Ted, how have you been, buddy? How have you been?
I've been okay,
Yeah.
what can I say? Spent the semester teaching in person,
Oh, you did?
wearing an N95 mask. So that worked fine. The first class, the students confirmed they could understand what I was saying. So that was good. So I just kept that N95 mask on the whole semester.
It's magic, it's magic. You don't have to shave, you don't have to do anything. Hey, and Ted works
Actually,
at
actually, I started shaving on a regular basis, which I didn't do before, because allegedly, if
yeah.
you grow facial hairs, it interferes with the efficiency of the mask.
Oh, unless you have a K95 beard.
I mean, like a little groove in the beard to fit the mask into.
I mean, I think I don't have much of a beard, but I think whatever I have is K95 friendly. So so Ted teaches philosophy at the University of Kentucky. He is a philosopher in Kentucky, and as I speak to you now, there's a lot to philosophize about in Kentucky right now. I mean, you were not in the area where the candle factory went down, but what are people thinking about after the tornadoes in Kentucky? And now we're into the holidays. Are people more in a holiday spirit, or are people saying, "Yeah, not this year"? Or what is the attitude in
I
Kentucky?
think probably like anywhere, people are desperate for some holiday cheer.
Yeah.
And the tornado, I think people, it was pretty destructive. And I think people feel great sympathy and have made a strong effort to assist the people. But rebuilding is a long process and sort of has to take care of itself. And so I think people generally are planning for the holidays and in Kentucky, probably not changing their plans very much presently. We've been invited to some parties that I think we're not going to go to.
Yeah.
Um,
I've canceled everything myself. Before we get off the tornadoes, though, your governor seems to be he seems to be rising to the occasion, right? Brashears?
well, he's good at that. He certainly has risen to the occasion throughout the pandemic. And he seems to be a rarity in politics, a genuinely nice guy,
Hmm.
and who really feels heartbroken that all these people's lives have been broken up, and he's deeply Christian in a very positive sense, and yeah, I thought he came off well.
Yeah, I mean,
But he does in these kinds of human emergency type of situations.
that's what
Um,
politics are made for, right? The
yeah,
guy,
well, they should be,
yeah. And meantime,
and notably, the Republican politicians in this state commended him,
yeah. Well,
and also Biden as well, because Biden, when he came, he was a very human figure.
yeah, right.
And you could see that he was capable of empathizing with people in the way that other presidents might have had trouble. It would be more for the show that you would go there, but he genuinely seemed to connect in a way that's not standard these days, or
Yeah, but
maybe
so
ever.
what? What explains the fact that when Biden did show up, only one Republican Congress member showed up to be with him, or very? I mean, I think it was the only one guy.
Yes, I think it was the person whose district it was.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure Duffy. I'm not that. That's not right. Whatever his name is. I well, it's politics still rules,
Yeah.
and but I think that Mitch McConnell was saying positive things.
Yeah, he was, but although the clip I saw of him visiting the site didn't make him look very human. I mean, made him
Well,
look
he's not good at that stuff. I mean,
yeah,
he's a political operator.
yeah. And he's
Um,
married to Elaine Chow, an Asian American, so that would sort of make me feel a little more kinder toward him, but I don't know. He seems to be everything he does is political. So I don't know if I benefit him, he'll like me. If I don't benefit him, he'll just sort of be indifferent and or you know what I mean. And so I don't know what kind of guy, but you're right, political. He's totally political.
oh, utterly. Yeah.
And so, but the people, I mean, the stories out of Kentucky, very sad. And I just hope, I mean, I broke up the other day. I saw that they were doing something on the Today Show and they were bringing in tons of food. Companies were donating food and they had people in front of the food trucks. I'm sure this is just a big photo op, right? Essentially, but people with their 5 kids and people with their sad stories. And it just makes you, I mean, the positive thing is it does remind you that that was a there but for fortune moment. And we have a lot to be grateful for in the
Well,
holidays.
that's for sure. That's for sure. I do think that it's hard to see how these people are going to get any semblance of their lives back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of uncertainty about, it's one thing, after 2 months, rebuilding takes a long time. There isn't really the economic base there to support a newly built world. And so it's who knows what's going to happen. I
Well,
bet a lot of people move away.
that's the thing. It's like after it's like you see places where there are big plants and they shut down and then the people leave and it's just like ghost towns, right? The big plant is there, no one, it's just a relic, right? It's almost like going to Detroit and seeing some old auto factories that have not, they've been burned down or abandoned because the modern plants have moved out. This happens all the time in America, but this is not like the company has been, brought to its knees and goes away. This is a natural disaster. There should be or could be an economy here if there was the wherewithal to deal with it, but instead, you're gonna see, like you said, people moving away. The company
I
view
think the economy was on the edge, anyways. I mean, it's illustrated by in the candle factory, the inmates that are working there.
oh,
So
yeah,
there weren't enough work people, and this goes back. This isn't just a recent phenomenon, but for a long time now, there have been insufficient number of employees, and
yeah,
so they made this sweetheart deal with the state prison system uh, to use inmates from multiple prisons in the factory.
yeah. So this was maybe a hastening of something that was gonna happen anyway, that the company was
Well, of course, one could say that about a lot of regions in this country,
yeah,
and natural disaster has a way of hastening decline. I don't think of, there are various regions we think of as in strong decline. I don't think of Western Kentucky that way. It's not a wealthy area, that's for sure. It's rather thinly populated,
yeah,
but yes, it does reveal that it's not, you know, people have a lot of already a lot of people had moved away. So there were a number of pieces I saw written that were based on nostalgia, on people's memories of having grown up in Mayfield,
yeah,
and they're very touching. But these are people that don't live there anymore, and so I think that that speaks to that world is in the past now.
yeah. Well, in the past, I like talking to you, Ted, because you are a philosopher and you talk about these things. And excuse me. And so tell me, how does a philosopher view all these things, like the tornado that comes and decimates a town, the Omicron virus that comes and you know supercharges COVID and makes everyone cancel their plans for Christmas? How does a philosopher view this? I know you do what, critical theory, right?
or social theory.
Social theory. Social theory.
Well, but one thing, those are in one sense very different, but in another way not so different, because they both involve the confluence of the material and social worlds.
Mhm.
So it's a way that something not of our making, though of course the jury's still out on the coronavirus,
Right.
um, but but
Tornadoes
uh,
do. Tornadoes
but
do
in
climate
yeah,
change.
but even that, even if that is the result of human manipulation, that's just a further illustration of the idea of the confluence of the social and the material. And tornadoes are dramatic events, really scary events. And the coronavirus is more like a stealth type of materiality that's moving through our existences and felling some and making, for a while, making us cower. And I think now it's going to be the opposite. I don't think people are going to change much in the next few weeks, and we'll see what it looks like in mid-January.
Well, there was something interesting in the New York Times op-ed page the other day that talked about, well, we should know, here's what we know, here's the science part, here's, how we evaluate things, but we do know that negative motivation works, right? We do know that telling people vaccinate or lose your job, that tends to work. Although a lot of people want to like stop that or say, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. But that's the hope. But the bottom line in the article was essentially that America is not good at coming together and acting on information in a positive way for the greater good. That we don't know how to do that well. What does that say about our country and our
Uh,
faith?
it says that we are the descendants of John Locke. Now, I bring him up as I taught him this past semester,
Ah,
but he's the person most responsible for the idea of individual rights. And somehow the timing of our revolution coincide, create the strong identification with individual rights, and that's carried to this day. And that's what lies behind most of the protests
yeah.
against any state taken measures, is that the rights of the individual are being infringed. And the result of that, which is also true in the philosopher Locke, that there's a very thin notion of the common good. And people do not feel a strong allegiance to it. And so, yes, this is the result. And England, the UK, is the other place that most embodies this. And the UK and the United States have very similar trajectories through the pandemic.
See, I knew that if I asked you as a philosopher, you would come up with John Locke. I thought yes.
Well, but it fits. I
Yeah.
mean,
Dad would come up with John Locke, and that's what we need. We need people to denounce their Lockean tendencies, or we'll all be locked down at some point.
well, it's the exaggeration of Locke, because there's no doubt that the idea of individual rights is one of the most important political ideas about in our world, and it always offers a bulwark against tyrannical government. And so it's very important that I think that countries embrace the idea. The problem is when you absolutize it and let it trump everything else, and that's what's going on. And as a result, the government, all the opposition to the mandates, company that Biden tried to impose, um, there it's all done in the notion of in the name of individual freedom, contrary to everyone's good. And so things, a little balance is good.
Balance. Well, you use that term, something trumps like I guess pun sort of intended, but certainly pun applies. But yeah, here's the actual bottom line of that New York Times piece. It's clear that the public health system does not know how to change people's beliefs about vaccines
Who would
because,
expect the health the system to be able to do that?
well, they did a study. They didn't know. They said, "Oh, certainly science and rationalism, and we get the facts. We'll be able to do this." And they did a study, and they showed that people who had the human papilloma virus, they were trying to see if they can get people to take the vaccine, and they were trying to see if they did it more than people who had no information, and there was no difference. There was no difference because there are people just like who are politicizing the HPV vaccine because they're saying, "Oh, it only encourages promiscuity," and so there's people saying, "Oh, well, then don't take the vaccine." So I mean, so there's been studies, and the guys who wrote this are out of the Harvard Medical School. They are saying public health system does not know how to change people's beliefs about vaccines. Until we do, America America's leaders should focus on other strategies, especially the ones we already know are effective. Well, what's
Well,
effective?
I
Math,
think
right? That's it. And vaccines, if 60, 70% take, well, we're at 61%, but vaccines, if maybe more people take it, I don't know. What is our strategy at this point?
you would have thought that usually the question, of course, is what makes people have the beliefs they do, be able to change their mind. And these days, there's a strong emphasis on opinion makers.
Mm,
And I had thought last year that physicians were crucial here because people tend to listen to their doctors. But apparently, that proved not true in this case, that people didn't listen to their doctors. And in the meantime, we have all these other opinion makers, and social media certainly amplifies that effect.
yeah.
And that's it's unrealistic to think certainly the healthcare system can do anything about that. It's not obvious what can be done other than the social media companies fundamentally changing their practices. And of course, then you get into the realm of profits and control and so forth. And there's not much sign that they're willing to relinquish any of that.
Well, that's interesting that you say that you thought that the doctors would have more sway, but they don't. And not but logic has no sway on the people who, will not vet.
Well,
Yeah, well, because look, people
I
some of the opinion makers who are non-vaxxers or no vax or whatever they call it now, they died. Some of those opinion makers have died, and it still does not have the oomph to like move this group of people, the unvaxxed, to vaccinate. So what do you say? What I mean,
Well, it's hard to logic's a tricky thing. I think in many cases, it's not that people have faulty logic, is that they have faulty premises. That
mm,
is, their beliefs are incorrect, and they reason in a reasonable way on the basis of wrong beliefs, and so that gets you to wrong conclusions.
That's
And
that's that's brilliant there. You get the wrong answer because your belief was wrong. It doesn't mean that, but of course you're going to be wrong if you start out wrong, but no one ever bothers with their where they begin.
the
And
the other thing is that um, there it's a philosophical principle that there is a no amount of evidence that can conclusively show a given belief to be false. And the reason is that you can always, you know, add what you would call an auxiliary hypothesis to the belief that explains the apparent incongruity.
this would be the asterisk that you put.
Or,
To
for instance, in the case where leading spokespersons against the vaccine died, then the auxiliary hypothesis is they died of something else. and the media is faking it, and that it was COVID. And so you can always rationalize away any apparent contradiction with your beliefs by simply picking the right rationalization. And so people who are very entrenched in their beliefs are good at finding those rationalizations. And of course, today people are supplying them right and left.
Yeah.
And this is not a phenomenon of logic anymore. This is a phenomena of, the way that beliefs can sort of fanatically hold on to people,
Yeah. So
or
how
the
do
other
you
way around. People
well how
fanatically hold on to their beliefs.
so how do you change belief? I guess that's the issue, right? How do you get people to believe? I mean, this is the issue
Well,
for policymakers who want to push the vaccine. You got to change beliefs.
be interesting. They said that, when the Omicron, the contours of the Omicron became somewhat clearer, that there was a sudden increase in people getting vaccinated. Now, this could have been people mostly just getting boosters, or it could be that some people who were not getting vaccinated decided to get vaccinated. And so I don't know. I mean, if the consequences start reaching into your own personal life,
Mhm.
maybe there's a point at which, so like when your friend down the street dies of COVID, and the widow or widower insists it was COVID. Don't tell me it's not. Maybe people start listening. I don't know. I don't know what moves people's beliefs, but they used to say, like with gun violence, that if there was enough of it, everybody would know somebody who had died at that at, at a gun, and as a result would have their opinion altered on the subject. So maybe it's the same thing with COVID, that it has to actually get into your personal life. Now, there are always some people that are going to defiantly react to even that, because there's some people whose, who they are gets tied up with their particular beliefs, and to alter the beliefs would be to deny themselves, at that point, there's nothing that can be done about those people. Those are the people you go to war against.
Oh, well, yeah. This is
Um,
COVID as a religious war, huh?
well, I'm not thinking specifically of COVID. I'm thinking about when it's that entrenched
Yeah.
and there's an active disagreement, there is nothing you can do but to try to kill each other.
Oh, are we at that point yet with the January
No, I don't
6th?
think we are. No, I'm not saying we are. I have more extreme situations in mind.
Yeah.
But, one can imagine a path there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why we need to like nip it at the bud and like try to come together. But it's so difficult, and when everyone politicizes, the vaccines and COVID, I don't know how we're going to work our way through this, especially when no people when people aren't getting together, except they're getting together on social media, and they reinforce and they provide the rationalization so that if people are wondering, well, what is the answer? And then they're given the answer. Well, they must have died from something else. Well, and that's where we are in American discourse right now.
I mean, one thing that's unclear is, part of the opposition here that's about the vaccinations is also tied up with things like urban rural division.
Right.
And it's clear that rural areas in this country are going to be badly impacted by the pandemic. And that leaves, to me, a question mark of what are these rural areas going to look like, 5 years from now, especially if it turns out, as people are predicting, that there will be a sizable uptick in the death totals with Omicron, even if it is milder. Um, and because I know just from anecdote already that all kinds of people are coming down with it that didn't get it before.
Yeah.
And so it's clear that this thing is going to spread quite a bit, in the areas where the naysayers and the anti-vaccination people live. I mean, those areas are going to be, and those are also areas that are undersupported by the medical systems. So it's super very unclear what this is all going to mean. And there are already the studies that show that, the death rates in red states are 2 to 3 times the death rates in the blue states. And so there could be, a hastening of, that type of socioeconomic transformation in the country too, with very uncertain result.
So you're concerned about the rural urban split, but there's all sorts of splits. There's also age
Right.
splits, and you see the census or the death rates among people over 65. 80% of the deaths have been people 65 and over. I mean, that's quite a
70 and over.
oh, is it
That's what I tell myself.
well, thank you for clarifying that because because the general demographic term is 65 plus, but you're right. It tends to be
No,
the
it's definitely higher at 65 than it is at 30. So
okay, but the big crest of the
yes.
wave is like 70 plus, 75 plus, 80 plus. But
Yeah.
by then, you probably well that I mean that's a reality, the generational difference. But there's also an economic difference, right, and racial differences.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of divides that are out there. The education difference, although there are a lot of smart people who are anti-vaxxers, a lot of educated, smart people who are anti-vaxxers. So yeah, it's hard to say, oh yeah, well, that this is, you know, I'm concerned. I was reading in online, Bill Gates, our classmate, said in a tweet that the worst of the pandemic could be upon us with the rise of Omicron during the holiday season. And he's canceled his plans. He says he knows people who've gotten it. He says he thinks it's gonna, he says if there's good news, it's that Omicron moves so quickly that once it becomes dominant in a country, the wave there should last less than 3 months. Those few months could be bad, but I still believe if we take the right steps, the pandemic could be over in 2022. He dropped out where we graduated, but do you believe in his prognostication? He was wrong on Jeffrey Epstein.
I guess a lot of people were.
Right.
Um, um, how do I know? I mean, I know what I wish.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I guess I think that people are going to underestimate this,
Mhm.
that we're always a step behind the reality of something like a pandemic, which you can't see.
Right.
And as a result, it will be bad in terms of infections. And we can't pronounce on virulence. It's clear that we just don't know. Um, that will be incredibly important for what happens in the healthcare system and whether, people who die not from COVID, but from lack of medical treatment for other things. So, yes, there could be a general uptick on all that. Numbers have already for some time now been going down in South Africa and apparently have started down in the UK again. And so and Fauci said this about the rapid increase translates into a rapid decrease. And so, um, but I think there is an imponderable element here, which is human behavior. And I guess I do think that people are going to be a half step behind all the time out of wishful thinking.
Yeah. I mean, look
Yeah.
at where we were. Look at where we were earlier this year, right? And then, oh, let's open up June, right? June we opened up, July, and then if you look at the case rates and the death rates, big spike after June and July, right? And now we were high and it's coming down lower. And now Omicron has come up and now it's making its presence felt. So it seems like we're always going to have these waves. It's never a sense of anything permanent, but a sense of impermanence is what we're dealing with going forward.
Well, I mean, there is one theory which I've heard repeated multiple times that if in fact the virulence of Omicron is lower, that this signals the ending of the pandemic. And that the limits of a coronavirus to mutate into forms that are dangerous for human being, it reaches limits. And the fact that the Omicron is less virulent signals the process has done that. Now, you have to be a virologist to, have informed opinion about that. But I've heard that theory multiple times. Now, this was partly in response to the early South African reports that the hospitalizations were lower. But it has turned out the hospitalizations are lower in the UK too.
Yeah.
So people are not willing. The experts are still waiting to pronounce, but that's 2 cases now with different populations. And so that maybe, that would be good news.
Yeah.
And it would just be a painful process to get through this coming push.
So it really just takes a little discipline and self-control.
What do you know?
Which people are,
Things in short supply in our country.
yeah, yeah. I mean, although Gates is saying he's canceling his plans, I've canceled plans we had. We were gonna, a daughter was gonna come over, and I said, "You better stay." And we're just gonna do this. We're gonna just Zoom. We're gonna, be together this way, which isn't as hardy, perhaps, but it's safe.
So we have a mixed situation. So we have declined, going to parties here. But I'm supposed to go skiing in the first week in January.
Oh yeah.
And I'm currently planning to do this because the first week in January is the slowest week of the year.
Yeah.
So once I'm there not going to be a whole lot of people there. And getting there is basically the air transport system.
Yeah.
And, I can wear an N95 mask, which I'm now well used to. So I will just keep that N95 mask all the time. And it's not fail safe, of course, but it does decrease greatly the odds of picking something up.
And you're not skiing with the snow bunnies like me. You're up there in the double, triple diamond.
That's right. I'm not in the hot tub with 40 other people.
I'm not in any hot tub, but I am with the, the masses, saying, well, I'd really rather have that hot toddy right now. But,
there just won't be that many people there.
Yeah. I don't suppose, but no, well, I
it's right after the previous week is really crowded.
Yeah. Well, I admire the fact that you're still skiing because a lot of people at this point, like I stopped skiing when I started using my body as a brake method, to go down the slope, okay, I'll fall down here. Okay. And then,
better than using a tree.
Well, yeah, I was going to like pick a spot that looks soft but that was not a good way, to ski. I figured, to use your body as a brake, and so but I'm glad to hear that you still partake.
Right, but I talk about this only to illustrate, and plus there are all these experts who are saying if you're careful, you can continue with your plans.
Yeah. Yes, and I always like that, but in the back of my mind, I think, oh, no one wants to say I'm going to be the Grinch. No one wants to say, except me. I don't mind being the Grinch. I don't mind being because maybe people.
I think it's partly if the studies if Pfizer and Moderna had reported from their lab tests that a booster did not appreciably raise the immunization level against coronavirus, I think those experts would be saying you got to cancel everything.
Yeah.
Because we would be facing a type of health crisis that we had never encountered before. And so they would say that because that would be an impending extreme situation.
So the fact that they said what they said and not that means, hey, it's probably
no. There's an element of what you're saying. I think is there certainly that everybody wants to continue with their lives, and so there's an inclination maybe to spin it that way if the facts let you spin it that way. But if the facts didn't let you, I don't think they would, because that would be a mass dereliction of duty.
Yeah.
To do that, and you're right. Nobody wants to be the Grinch.
Yeah. But you have to, I think you have to. I think in the name of public health, I don't mind celebrating Christmas in July. I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to put it off. I put off everything else, and it just seems to me to be kind of the prudent course, especially knowing how Omicron gets into everything. I mean, it's virulent. It spreads because it you know it's spreading faster than Delta, spreading faster than the original, and because it doesn't discriminate, it just go, and that's why we have a lot of breakthrough cases. I hear a lot of
Now,
kind of
I haven't heard a good explanation yet of why it's spreading quicker.
uh,
So there are two basic dimensions to this. One is it's better at getting into your body, and then the other is that once it's in your body, it's better at doing its thing.
I think the latter. I think because I heard that it has a spikier way
Right.
of attaching to a host. It's always looking for a host, and it is, this is it cannot be denied, right? And if you're, this is why also most of the people who've come down with this are unvaccinated, right? The unvaccinated are the people who are at risk. So
Yeah.
what I hear is that if you're triple vax, right, a double shot booster, that you should have all the tools you need to at least make Omicron a minor thing.
Right.
But
Well, you
if
got to
you're
wear masks and
right,
keep your
right,
distance from people and all that stuff. Yeah.
being outdoors, yeah. But if you are unvaccinated, forget it.
Well, it
Now,
sounds it sounds like your days are, not your days are numbered, but your healthy days may be numbered.
yeah. It's just that if you're unvaccinated, you have no tools. And that's why I just, when I do this program, I just say, look, I say vax, get boosted. That's not just a line from the government. That's just a line to keep you healthy. And if everyone on the internet is saying, forget the vaccination rate, I'm going to be the one who says vax because I'm the balance. I'm the balance in the social media because you know, who they're very well, not very few people say go out and get vax. Biden's saying it, all the science folks are saying, but of the people who are doing shows like this, most of the people say, yeah, but I say get vax. And so we'll see what happens.
So has that changed? That there's more urging of boosters now?
There's more urging of boosters. I'm saying that the people online tend to be the anti-vax folks who just don't buy it, who get lazy, and then
So the
people.
same people. So you're saying the same, media personalities who have been preaching against vaccination are still singing the same tune about boosters,
For the most part, I
and
mean,
there's been no movement on that. Well, then their audience is in for trouble.
yeah, well, like I was saying, that New York Times opinion piece is saying that the public health system can't convince people to change their beliefs on vaccines, and there are people still who are like dead set against vaccines. I'm the balance to say go out and get vaxxed. And it goes back to what we were saying about people's beliefs. They go to listen to the shows that reinforce and provide them with the rationalizations. I don't give them any rationalization. I say get vaxxed. I had to deal with a member who was going to come, a family member who was going to come here, and they did not booster. And it's like, how can you like engage in conversation and not get the full arsenal? Because if we're at war, and Fauci's even used the metaphor, I mean, it's an obvious one, but I think the more you use it, you can bring in Second Amendment, you can bring in all the things. You wouldn't go out to a fight, without your gun, and your gun is your vaccine. And I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well.
That might commingle the beliefs better, or the belief you want them to have and the belief they do have. Yes, the vaccine is part of your Second Amendment right to have a vaccine, but I don't know how convincing that is.
No.
Maybe if we made it a semi-automatic jab, it jabs so many jabs in your arm. So Ted, really, one thing I noticed in our conversation, you say Omicron. and I say Omicron.
Oh, and is there a correct pronunciation, or is
Well,
this the
Ted, you
famous either or?
no, Ted, you are the PhD philosopher. Me, I'm
But I
just
don't listen to the explanation. I have heard in the background
yeah.
somebody like on TV saying, no, the right way of pronouncing it is this. And I don't listen. So I don't know what the correct,
Okay,
if
all right.
there is a correct
The
pronunciation.
correct pronunciation from the Greek is Omicron.
And
Like
it doesn't depend on what part of Greece you live in.
the greasier part. The greasier part. Omicron. You know, I read it in the Wall Street Journal in the news section. So you know that was more true than not. If I read it in the opinion section, I'd say, maybe not so true. But in the news section, they
All
said
right. Well, I'll now from that this point on try to remember to say Omicron.
Omicron like AWE, like oh my god,
A
that's so
W
AWE.
Omicron.
That's so awesome. It's
Omicron.
Omicron. It's Omicron. Yeah, OM
Is
like
that like oh my god, Omicron?
no, oh my god would be like
Omicron?
oh
Omicron.
oh my god would be like you're a meditator. Oh my god. Say but
Oh
Macron.
yeah, right. I just said it wrong again. Omicron. Omicron.
Like awesome dude. Awesome. That's the correct way. Awesome that Omicron.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm sure I can't get awesome right.
You know, you can get awesome. You just did. Yeah, it's the mnemonic. You say, oh, that Omicron is so awesome. That awesome virus is Omicron. The Delta, that's easy. Anyone can say Delta. But if someone said Delta, then we have a problem. I don't. I haven't heard
Good.
anyone say Delta,
No.
but not even. Yeah. So anyway, Ted. Well, congratulations on. We should congratulate ourselves on surviving the whole thing and to now. And I'm so happy that we rekindled our conversations, not just now, but at the very beginning of the pandemic, because you know it's just an interesting way to gauge where things have gone in the pandemic. Well, I talked to you, and I thought, you know, and we thought it'd be over, and it just never ended, and it never ended, and then do you have a prediction? Do you want to predict before we
No, I don't believe in predicting the future if it depends on human behavior.
That is smart. That is smart. Okay, so you're no
Because
nos
human behavior is indeterminate, and so it simply hasn't happened yet.
so we should wait. And we'll just
Well,
take
no, we got to make predict. We had to run our societies. We have to make predictions. You
yeah.
can't. You don't know what to do if you don't have a. So yes, we have to call on whatever sources of information we want to call on, whether they're scientists or priestesses or the entrails of a sacrificial animal or whatever it is. You got to rely on whatever your society believes in. You know, it can garner the future.
I have a leaf sucking otter. I
A
know
leaf sucking otter.
yeah, no entrails of an animal, but leaf sucking okay, well that's the only thing I had here to grab. So all right. Well, I think Gates is being overly optimistic to say it's going to end in 2022.
Well, he's not the only one who's saying that.
Yeah.
Um, so I, um, but yes, well, who knows? Uh, the real question is, can a coronavirus mutate into a non-coronavirus and thereby be something entirely new? And um, I don't see why not. It's not like these things are fixed in nature.
So maybe it
Um,
kind of waters itself down.
it waters itself down, but then it mutates into an entirely new thing. So we're back at square one.
So instead of this deadly, virulent thing, it mutates and its legacy says, you know, we're going to change and we're going to be different. and they become the anti Omicron. They become the less awesome Omicron or something, like you said. And then we're
Or
back.
I'm thinking more of the new, much scarier virus.
Ah, you're even darker than I was willing to go optimistic in the change, but it
Well,
could.
but that's the happy scenario is in fact that they were saying also the Omicron has a significant um, its non-spike part has a significant component that comes from the common cold.
Oh, so
And they were saying this is why it could spread so quickly, but also makes it less virulent. Now, I don't know if that adds up, all those things add up or not, but this was part of the explanation of why the Omicron signals a weakening of the coronavirus and movement toward the end of the pandemic. So
well,
I don't know if that stuff's true.
so we'll have to see. We'll cross our fingers. We're not guessing. Well, we're guessing, but they're not guessing in the government, right? You
I
see,
hope they are. I hope they are. I hope they're not guessing. That means they know what's going on.
right, well,
We
there's that
don't want
thing.
that.
We don't want them not guessing. We want them not guessing.
We want them to be figuring it out and to be ahead and to know more than we do and to be able to help us navigate the whole thing to a happy conclusion. We don't want them to know from the beginning what the plot is.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that.
And I doubt they do, but I mean, there's enough conspiracy theories about the origin of these things, which are unresolved at this point. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, so far the best thing we got is South Africa, right? I mean, and who knows? But that's where it first broke. Well, listen, Ted, I'm glad that we connected. Really, I appreciate your time. Ted Schatzki is a philosophy professor at the University of Kentucky. I really, I'm so happy to be able to chat with you. Hear you slurp your
here
coffee.
I have an apropos t shirt on.
What's that say? Fight what? Fight truth to. Yes, we must
I
fight.
thought that was a good slogan. It was. So I went around asking friends. I said, "Fight truth decay," and went hint, hint, and they
Yeah,
all just looked at me with blank looks. And then I realized you have to be of a certain age to appreciate the slogan "Fight truth decay."
yeah, yeah. I mean, back when there was no fluoride in the
Exactly, but most people apparently don't get this reference.
fight truth decay. Yeah, that's because they all have Invisalign braces now. These are oh, we're beyond truth
Well,
decay.
it's because fluoridization has become an accepted, non-controversial thing, and
Yeah,
so they're unaware of this whole campaign and political battle that took place in the, I guess, what, early '60s
yeah. There
was
were
it?
a lot. There
Um,
was a big anti-fluoridization.
right.
Fluoridization.
So this is a play, a contemporary play on that, but just most people they can read the words, but they don't understand the reference to the past events. So
All those young people.
exactly.
What are we going to
They
do?
know so little.
They're heading in the right direction. Hey, so
Oh, hopefully.
oh, so Ted, really, happy happy holidays
Yeah, same to you.
and all that. And really, I appreciate you being on Emil and Muck's Takeout. Really, I really do. Thank you, Ted.
So are we off the air now?
Not yet.
No.